Hey, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Urban Politics, where politics lives. I'm your humble host, Fizz Ed Music. Let's get right into it like a corn drive. Got all types of tasty politics for us to sink our teeth into this week. Check it out. Let's start off with the Department of Justice suing Georgia over their new voting rights laws, their racist laws. A friend of mine said that laws can't be racist. Obviously, these laws are racist because the Department of Justice feels the need to step in and do something about Georgia trying to disenfranchise the vote for so many minorities and other folks. The Department of Justice is getting in the act with landmark civil rights legislation. Biden is signaling he's going to fight this assault on our democracy, which is a great thing. I was wondering what was going to go on because Republicans are all over this great state of ours, enacting all these different voting laws to stop minorities and young people and the elderly from voting. I was wondering, are Democrats going to do anything? Is the Department of Justice going to do anything? They need to just stop. This is no time to, rest on their laurels. So they need to get the fire up under their butts and do something while these people are trying to basically, steal the vote from everyday Americans, disenfranchise the vote. So that's good that finally they've gotten together and said, yeah, let's do something. The lawsuit states that Georgia purposely enacted voting laws against minorities because of the overwhelming minority votes last election. And everybody knows that. That's why a lot of people or a lot of people definitely on the right were taking notice. Georgia got flipped. It flipped from a red state to a blue state. It hadn't went blue in several years. That was a huge deal. A lot of that was because of Stacey Abrams. All of that was probably because of Stacey Abrams. That's why a lot of times if you hear her name on Fox News or out of the mouth of Republican senators, you'll hear a lot of disdain and discomfort around that woman's voice. They're afraid of her. They probably should be. She was able to galvanize people like no other in Georgia, and you see what happened. Like I said, she flipped it from red to blue. That was huge. So there's that. Georgia's governor said that he is going to fight this, said that Biden was weaponizing the Justice Department. Well, that's not true because the Justice Department has a history of getting involved in voting rights all the time, or in just making sure that states who have, let's say, a problem enacting legislation that's come down from the federal government, the Department of Justice has had to step in on many occasions and make sure that these states do what they're supposed to do or what's been handed down by their federal government. So that is what it is. It's not unprecedented. They've done it before. And obviously they're going to do it again. They'll automatically be decided in federal court. So ultimately, this stuff, of course, will be decided in federal court. So that's what's going to go on now. The Department of Justice suing Georgia over these racist voting laws. So it'll go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will decide on it, and they'll hand down the legislation whether this is okay or not okay. Does it infringe on the rights of minority voters? The Supreme Court will also lay out a plan for how states will handle recounts. And what is the burden of speculation to cause a recount? So that's the thing too, and that's something that definitely needs to be discussed. What is the burden of proof for there to be a recount? Is it just a bunch of people over here saying that the election was stolen? What's your proof? Don't have any proof. We just feel like it's stolen, and we feel like elections in this country aren't as good or as solid as they should be. Well, what proof do you have of that? What makes you think that? I just think it. We have no proof. We don't need any proof. We just know the elections aren't fair around here. See, that's garbage. So they got to do something about that. That's basically what's going on now. You got a whole political party over here yelling that the 2020 vote was stolen, but they can show no proof of that. And there is no proof of that because it did not happen. But they keep running around talking about it. Ergo, we're going to need our Supreme Court to set up some ramifications to make it so that people can't just willy-nilly call fraud. There's got to be a burden of proof. There's got to be some type of evidence for you to be yelling fraud or that an election was stolen. The Department of Justice was saying that any law that denies the right to vote based on color is in violation of the Voting Rights Act. They said that they will be monitoring voting by mail and voting registration. A task force is being created to ensure that anyone trying to intimidate election workers will be swiftly prosecuted. opening cases where there is suspected voting manipulation. So this is good stuff. This is Department of Justice saying that we're not playing any games anymore. You see all these people doing all these hokey things with the votes. So we're stepping in now, and we're going to make sure that this does not happen anymore. We got to protect the vote. Thank goodness that somebody over there is paying attention. Like I said, I was really wondering what was going to happen around here. I said they need to stop resting on their laurels and start checking some of these people trying to do all this hokey stuff with the vote. It looks like that's what they're doing. I mean, they laid it out. I think it was a Saturday morning, what all this case against Georgia is entailing, and how they're definitely going to get giving a lot of more scrutiny to what's going on with the vote in some of these different states, because it's evident that we have a whole political party that has made it their job to make sure that people can't vote. They want to shrink access to the vote instead of opening up the franchise. They kind of want to close it or whatnot, and we can't have that. I mean, America, the right to vote is probably the single most important right, so we have to protect that, and I'm glad to see that we have a Justice Department that's, like I say, getting in the act and doing their job. That's what they're supposed to be doing. Getting justice for all Americans, ensuring the right to vote. That is ensuring a piece of justice for all of Americans. So, moving on, when Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act was still intact, it stopped 175 racist voting laws in Georgia. So think about that. A while ago, they got rid of that. And what Section 5 was, I've talked about it on the show before. Quickly, what it was a part of the Voting Rights Act to where it basically said southern states, your North Carolinas, your South Carolinas, your Georgias, places like that, whenever they wanted to change the vote, do something different with the way that people were voting, or the style in which people voting, or the things that people had to vote, they had to kick it up to the federal government. If the federal government looked at it and said in any way that it was biased or stopped minorities or young people, elderly, or whatever from voting in any way, they put the kibosh on and say you can't do that. So they worked hard, Republicans worked hard to get rid of that. They ended up getting rid of it, and when they gutted it, I remember sending out a tweet, and I talked about how, Martin Luther King marched for it. Al Sharpton marched for it. I said Martin Luther King died for it, and they took it away with the stroke of a pen. So when they did that, that's when you started seeing a lot of these voting laws and stuff that you're seeing in Georgia. And they said that when that was still a thing before they got rid of it, it had stopped 175 racist voting laws just in Georgia. That's only in Georgia. That is not in all of America. That's only in Georgia, 175 laws. Now that right there shows that there was definitely no precedent to get rid of it. If anything, it needed to be strengthened. But you have a lot of people who I think until even recently, they didn't understand that this vein of racism and resentment was so thick in the Republican Party. I can remember Al Sharpton and Joe Scarborough having an argument / conversation about it on Morning Joe, and Joe Scarborough had took offense because he said that to Al Sharpton. He said, "What do you think that this Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act is still needed? Do you think some of those racist people that were around in the 60s are still around doing their thing in some of these southern states right now as we're speaking?" And this was like probably, this was early 2000s or whatever. And Al Sharpton was like, "Yeah, Joe, they are." And Joe Scarborough, he didn't want to feel that, but he feels that now he's no longer a Republican because of a lot of stuff that went on with Trump and all that, and how they kind of lifted their skirt and showed their real hand, and how their racism is showing, and it's showing real tough right now. These days they wear it as a badge of honor. So, Joe Scarborough, I guess for years he was a Republican. He didn't know that it was that serious, but he finally ended up finding out that it was. Lo and behold, we need that. We need to bring that back, because obviously a lot of these places can't be trusted. You see how Georgia then tried to get out on everybody. As soon as it looked like they had some freedom, what did they do? They go right there and they just enact just some of the most racist and the most egregious voting laws you've ever seen in your life. As soon as the gates were up, as soon as they had what they thought was the okay to go, they went real quick, and went ahead and did this these lame voting laws. So we need that, gotta bring it back, because obviously these southern states can't be trusted. The Joe Manchin legislation that he's putting forward is actually, I'm pretty sure it's the John Lewis legislation. And what it is basically Section 5 only went for like southern states, right? So it was just those southern states, whenever they wanted to do something hokey with the vote, they had to kick it to the federal government. What Joe Manchin is proposing and the John Lewis legislation is saying that every state in the union would have to kick it to the federal government if they wanted to do something freaky with the vote. I think that's brilliant. And just like Miss Abrams, I definitely support the man, and I support that legislation right there. I like that. But I'm going to get to what she exactly said about it. But you know what I'm saying, I respect her opinion, and I definitely, I'm on board with that. I agree that I think every state in the union should have to send it to the federal government just to make sure that they're not trying to do anything racist or underhanded to disenfranchise people or keep people from voting. Anyway, moving on. SB 202 is what the name of this legislation is in direct violation of the Voting Rights Act. So yeah, so that law in Georgia is in direct violation, of Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, because it's stopping people from voting. You know, it's coming up with all these crazy, and you've seen some of the laws. We'll talk about some of the laws in shows to come, but you know, all types of crazy stuff. You can't give somebody water and a snack who's been online for 1 million years in the hot sun in Georgia. All these different things. Getting rid of a lot of ballot boxes, shortening the voting time, getting rid of, what do they call it, the Golden Weekend or whatever, when they do souls to the polls and black churches go and vote. Doing all these little freaky things, like I said, to mess with the vote, just to make sure that minorities are not voting, because Georgia flipped blue and they are scared to death that it's gonna go Democratic again, which I'm looking forward to do. We're going to talk about that too in some upcoming shows. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Rudolph Giuliani. Yeah, that dude who was sweating motor oil back in the day, a little while ago. He's really sweating now. Loses his law license because he perpetuated the big lie. A lawyer cannot knowingly tell complete falsehoods. I didn't know that. Now, liar. Lawyers are known for lying, right? But I guess a lawyer cannot go out and say things that they know are patently false. And I guess when you're saying them in the court of public opinion, like Giuliani was, it's not a good look, and you look good getting disbarred, which he did. They took his legal license. And how about this? It has nothing to do with his criminal charges. He still has criminal charges behind other crap that he did, being involved with Trump. This has nothing to do with that. They said that they're taking his law license only because he supported and perpetuated the big lie that the 2020 election was stolen. Wow, that blew me away. But you know what? That's appropriate, isn't it? Because how you out here as a lawyer defending people, with the law, losing the law, supposed to be an orchestrator of the law, and you are a liar. You're out here telling things, telling falsehoods. Repeating things that you know are patently false. They're things that you know for a fact are untrue. Yeah, you look good losing your license, and he did lose his license. His son doesn't look like he's too smart either, but I'll leave it at that. His son says it's a bunch of Democrat lawyers trying to punish Trump's lawyer. So he thinks the whole thing is partisan, because he said all these lawyers, who voted or whatever to have my father disbarred, they're all Democrats. And that's just them trying to punish my father, who's Trump's personal lawyer. So they're mad at him because he's Trump's personal lawyer. So that's why they want to take his law license. Nah. They want to take his law license because he's a liar. And he's been out here telling lies to the camera, to people's faces, sweating motor oil, running to Ukraine, trying to bribe people, doing a lot of stuff that a lawyer should not be doing, definitely that no one should be doing in front of people. And Rudy been doing it in front of people. So there's that. Think about it, man. This guy, he basically has He's thrown his career away, he did that a long time ago, but really threw his legacy away. Here's an old man, and think about it. He used to be America's mayor. After 9/11, he was that dude. He was able to pull in resources for New York. He was able to help New York get back together on his feet. I remember when he got on Saturday Night Live and opened it up, and everybody was laughing at little jokes and stuff that he was making, and he was on there and was a big hit and all of that. His legacy was pretty okay until Trump became president, and then he became his personal lawyer and started these shenanigans. Now, this is the stuff he'll be known for. He basically he's destroyed his legacy with Trump, you know. And think about it, all of that, he still hasn't been paid. He still has not been paid. I don't know why people work with Trump knowing he doesn't pay anybody. So Rudy still has not been paid. So all of that, you threw away your career, you've trashed your legacy, your name is mud in the streets, and you still ain't even been paid for the work that you did or didn't do in the name of Donald J. Trump. So, you know what, I can't feel sad for Giuliani, because he definitely dug his own grave, so he's got to go ahead and lie in it. So there it is. But that's a shame that man went out that way. So we're going to see what goes on with that, because this is just start. We're not done yet. You know, they've taken his legal license, and like I said, so he's not practicing law anymore, but hopefully he's getting a lawyer, because he's still got some criminal charges that he got to deal with. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about the big holiday that we celebrated just this past June 19th, Juneteenth. A little bit of history. Juneteenth is a mashup of June and the 19th, celebrating the emancipation of slavery. It took 2.5 years for the word to get out to all the slaves. And this was purposeful. A lot of people don't know that, but I guess they were saying that the U.S. actually, perpetuated black people not knowing that the slaves were free. So that was still about 2.5 years of free labor that America got out of a lot of slaves. Once again, I laugh to keep from crying, because I'm like, seriously? So the Emancipation Proclamation had went down, slaves had been freed, but it took 2.5 years for all brothers and sisters to get the word and finally throw down their stuff and then let it be known that they were free. You know, and they said that was purposeful. That was not by accident. You know, there were plenty of slave owners and people who were involved in slavery who were kind of like, shh, keep it low. Let's go ahead and, let's milk them for all we can milk them for. Because in a minute here, the word will be out and we won't even be able to do this no more. So there's that. There was a lady by the name of Opal Lee. She's a 94-year-old activist. She marched 1,400 miles from Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C. to advocate for the making of Juneteenth into a federal holiday. So, of course, she was extremely honored when that happened. She was there when Biden signed it into a federal holiday, signed it into law or whatever, and she had got a pen and stuff. And even she had said that this is a great day, but there's so much more work to be done. I was glad that sister, acknowledged that, hey, this is good, but there's a whole lot more work to be done. And that's what a lot of people were saying, that it was kind of a slap in the face. I think I might have even said that last show and kind of left it at that. I was waiting till, this show to kind of go deeper into it. But, and I only say it's a slap in the face because it's cool that Juneteenth is a federally recognized holiday. That's cool. Now, if you're black, you've been celebrating Juneteenth for a long time. I honestly cannot remember a time when I didn't celebrate Juneteenth, or when there wasn't a Juneteenth festival or a block party or something like that in the hood celebrating Juneteenth. So, mainstream America has woken up to the fact that that's something to celebrate, but Black America has been celebrating it forever. So, and really, who cares about Juneteenth when we still need an anti-lynching law? It's ridiculous. We've needed that for a while. The filibuster has stopped it. Other things have stopped it. But, it continues to come up. It continues to be an issue. Now, people would sit there and say, oh, well, black people don't get lynched anymore. Well, yeah, we do. But the lynchings just look different now. And I think I spoke to that, too, on this show. What you saw happen with George Floyd, that was a lynching. He was lynched. So we need anti-lynching laws, and we don't have that. That's and I think a lot of people got upset about that. You got an Asian hate crime bill, and not to hate on that. We needed that. That's important. We should have that. But we should also have our anti-lynching bill to go with it. We should also have an anti-police violence bill that goes with it. What is it, the George Floyd Act, that takes away some of the protections that these police officers have? That's not law yet. We need that. Before you go making Juneteenth a holiday, do some of this stuff. So that's why I say kind of a backhanded compliment, kind of a smack in the face. Another thing too, in this country, we don't give any context for anything. So here it is, we got this holiday, Juneteenth. I was at work. I overheard some of my coworkers talking, and one of them was saying to the other one, these guys happen to be white, and one said to the other guy, yeah, Juneteenth, that's a federal holiday, today or whatever. And he said, okay. And he said, what's it about? And the other white guy said, well, you should Google it. And he said, yeah, I think it's about Stonewall. What? It has nothing to do with Stonewall. Now, is Stonewall important? Yes, it is. Is that something that needs to be studied and talked about and remembered and honored? Sure enough. But it has absolutely nothing to do with Juneteenth. So see what I'm saying? And people should know that, but that's, unfortunately, too often in this country, we get handed a holiday or something that we're claimed, that we're told that we need to reverence, but we aren't told why, or we're given a watered down history of it. So that's all I would ask is, come on now, you got people celebrating Juneteenth, at least tell them what it's really about and what really went down. But you got people running around here scared of critical race theory, which isn't even taught, but scared that it might be taught somewhere. So those same people are definitely scared of talking about the real life history of slaves not finding out they were free for 2.5 years after it happened. So there's that. 14 Republicans voted against it. How do you vote against making Juneteenth a federal holiday? Well, they did. And here's what one of them said about it. Said it was too close to July 4th. Said Americans would have to choose which one to celebrate based on race. Come on, man. Somebody smacked the taste out of that guy's mouth. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. First of all, Americans do not need a reason to take a day off or have a day off of work. So if you're handing them that, they got their hands out. Please let me get that. You know what I'm saying? And based on race, no. I'm celebrating Juneteenth. I'm celebrating July 4th. I'm celebrating all of it. All of it is an excuse to pull out the grill or just not be at work and maybe kick back with a beer or whatever is your poison of preference and just enjoy your day and not have to worry about, being at the salt mine. So get out of here with that. No one's going to sit there and say, ooh, what should I celebrate? No, I ain't going to lie. I've seen some people on TikTok and they were talking about, they said, well, I'll just be celebrating Juneteenth. I never celebrated 4th of July anyway, because they got issues with that in America. Hey, I hear that, some of that. But that's nothing new. These people last year, that's what they did before Juneteenth was a thing. You see what I'm saying? Well, it was a thing in mainstream. They celebrated Juneteenth, didn't really celebrate July 4th. So there you go. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is, but that's stupid. That was these guys just not wanting to support Juneteenth. They just want to support it. They want to turn a blind eye to slavery. They want to turn a blind eye to the atrocities of black and brown people. So that's the way that they do it. If they don't vote for this legislation, they can pretend that that slavery didn't happen. They can pretend that Juneteenth didn't happen. They can just keep pretending all of those things. So that's why they did that, and that's pretty pathetic. But that's our government. That's our tax dollars not at work. Anyway, moving on. Joe Biden will host the unveiling of Barack Hussein Obama and Michelle Obama's portraits at the White House. Trump famously refused. It's a long-standing tradition, So even when Barack was there with Michelle, they had the unveiling, and it was George Bush Jr. and his wife. And they unveiled the portraits and they had a big ceremony. It's tradition. Every other president has done it besides Trump, but there's a lot of things that are tradition that he didn't do because he's a jerk and he likes to break precedents, and not because he was this groundbreaking individual, but really because he was this pathetic, weak individual. He was a stain on democracy that'll never go anywhere. So here's just another thing that he did that was embarrassing and low class. But, luckily, Mr. Biden will be making up for it and giving the Obamas the unveiling that they deserve of their portraits and stuff like that. So that's a great thing. Moving on, Representative Ted Lieu called out the Catholic Church, said bishops are hypocrites for trying to deny Biden communion over his abortion stance while ignoring Bill Barr's death penalty push. So here's the thing with that. Bill Barr, and he was Trump's attorney general. He is also a Catholic, and they were saying that he was pushing for the death penalty. He supports it, and the Catholic Church does not support the death penalty. But at the same time, they're mad at Biden. Why? Because he supports abortion, or at least, not necessarily supports it, but he's not, he said he's not against it. He's not against it. And of course, the Catholic Church, they're hardcore against abortion, right? So they want to take away his right as a Catholic to get communion because he supports abortion. But they're not coming at Bill Barr, even though he supported the death penalty. Which is, all this whole thing is ridiculous. Because then, first of all, I'm like, hold up. Whatever happened to the separation of church and state, right? So we're supposed to be a country of people who can govern the way that they feel they need to, or that can govern in such a way that benefits their constituents, right? But and not have to be held to any kind of scrutiny because of the way that they believe or their beliefs, right? This is supposed to be the land of religious freedom. But how is it they come right at Biden's neck and they're like, nah, if you're calling yourself a Catholic, we don't support abortion. Since you do, no more communion for you. What? That's ridiculous. But that's what happens. When you start mixing church and state, when you start mixing your religion with your politics, that's when you start muddying these waters. And a lot of people, and Mr. Lou was even saying, well, why aren't you holding Barr's feet to the fire? Why didn't want to take his communion away, and he supports the death penalty. But here's my thing. What about all these priests who molested little boys and just got moved to other churches to molest again? Let's talk about that. Y'all tripping them off of Biden supporting a woman's right to choose. Let's talk about that. I don't think the Catholic Church is in any position to pass judgment on anybody after all the stuff that then went down with them. All the money that y'all didn't have to pay out to victims, all the different organizations that exist for victims to get justice. Y'all don't have a leg to stand on. So somebody please tell the Catholic Church to take several seats trying to come at Mr. Biden about the fact that he supports a woman's right to choose. He should say, what about all them priests that y'all have molesting little boys and then just moved them around to different churches so they could keep molesting and didn't even drop a dime on them like you're supposed to the authorities? What about that? Can we talk about that? They don't want to talk about that. Anyway, the hypocrisy. That is utter hypocrisy. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Mr. Joseph Biden. He has 50%, or actually a 57% approval rating, 40% disapproval rating. That's good. That is really good. So that means 57% of America is happy with the job that he's doing. That's just a point I wanted to make right there. Those are good numbers. To be 7-8 months in and 57% of America is on board with what you're doing, that's good. If he could keep that up, I think we're looking pretty good, or should I say the Democrats are looking pretty good in the 2022 midterms. My last point, I wanted to talk about Stacey Abrams and what she was saying. I talked about it earlier. I just want to restate it again or reiterate it. She said that she absolutely backed Joe Manchin's voting rights compromise. She said the tenets of Manchin's proposal are strong ones that will create a level playing field. When I heard that, I was like, oh, I'm definitely on with what Mr. Manchin is talking about, especially if Miss Stacey Abrams is on board with it. This lady's dynamic. She should have been governor of Georgia. That got stolen from her, but she still stayed, in the game, galvanized the vote in Georgia. She flipped it from red to blue single-handedly. Of course, she would say, well, I got a team of people who do the hard work and all that stuff, and that's what they did. They went around, they knocked on doors. Like I said, they galvanized the vote. The right is terrified of her. They should be. So when I heard that she, was digging what Joe Manchin was saying and can get on board with his plans, I'm on board with that too. So I'm like, y'all need to listen to her. I think I talked about it on the show, maybe last show or show before that. They were trying to, then try and say something about, these ideas are coming from Stacey Abrams and not coming from Joe Manchin. Get that out of here. That was just them trying to throw a little shade over at Joe Manchin, try and make him, seem like he's weak or something, or, doesn't have his own thoughts. I like how she was able to deal with that quickly and be like, nah, go ahead and squash that. That's ridiculous. And he obviously is able to think for himself, and he has shown that. Some people would say at the peril of his own party with some of the things he's done with supporting the filibuster and things like that. So it is what it is. This week I do not have an IPA of the week just because I really hadn't got around to getting one, and I have to really search for one that I haven't had yet and that's good to bring to y'all, because some of these IPAs suck, and if I've had it and it sucks, I don't want to waste my money on it. So I like to bring IPAs that I haven't brought to you before, but that I know for a fact are good because I probably had it already. Anyway, that is what it is. I am your humble host, Phys Ed Music. This right here is Urban Politics, where politics lives. Know that you can always give me a little pushback at phys-ed-music@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. Get at your boy. See you around like a donut.